All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Today on Alpha Commission, of course, we're going to go over that just sideways action on the Bitcoin chart. Guys, over the last week or so, I have been pointing out this drive of bearish divergence. Now, that is Class A bearish divergence on the Bitcoin chart. And sure enough, that Bitcoin bearish divergence, plus that topping tail candle that we did identify, at least in the group, I do think I included it in the video on Alpha Commission as well, that did suggest that most likely we were going to do essentially nothing for the next week or so, and potentially, we could lose our range lows. Now, our range low here is effectively around this 115,000. You can see that's where we have this little microscopic order block here that did impulse us all the way to 123,000. Now, if we do lose that order block, effectively this will be a bearish breakdown. I think I could go to a really smaller time frame, like maybe the 4 hour here, and if I get out my highlighter, you can see that we're starting to develop something that does have the characteristics of a distribution wedge. Now, the danger of this is that if we lose this low, okay, and we don't like just wick down and make a higher low, if we lose this low and we back test it bearishly here and just can't break back above this, there's a good measured move to the downside, and we can, just take a range duplication estimate. Just, it's one of the kind of dumbest ways you can do a measured move, but hey, they work quite often, and we can see that we have a measured move down to 110,000. Now, this is starting to gain confluences, okay? So we have, first of all, a distribution wedge forming, we have bearish divergence, and then also we have now formed, fully formed a bearish, kind of just a baby bearish shark formation, bearish crab formation. Now, this isn't really validated until we break that neckline as well. So everything really depends upon this neckline and how the market makers are going to treat this neckline. If they decide to essentially get limited, break down, and then just struggle with that 115, 116 area, then hang on to your hats. We may actually come down to the realistic harmonic target of 111, maybe a 110, down to my critical zone. We do have a generalized target of 106, and this could bring us back into our bull pattern, which we don't actually want to lose. We would much strongly prefer to just back test it and then go. Okay, what we don't want to do is get underneath that 110 area and then get locked into that zone down here. That could end up validating, should we ever break this 101 area, that could end up validating this bearish shark formation. And I do think that if we ever lost 100,000, just my personal expectation is that not only are we going to see 93,000, but probably, we may have some ping pong action or whatnot, but probably we're going to come down to this $80,000 area, and then we're going to have to play it by ear from there. So again, this bearish drive here, along with this baby bearish crab harmonic, plus that distribution wedge formation, it's just a little bit ominous. Okay, guys, like this drive up here and this consolidation and pullback, it's starting to feel like this drive here, this consolidation and pullback, and then this kind of feels like this second drive. And then you can see where we had one of these distribution wedges formed previously. Now people are going to say, oh, that's a bull pennant, Sky. Like, why are you saying bearish stuff? That's a bull pennant. Like, we're going to the moon, right? Like, that's exactly what they said back here. All right. I'm telling you, if we break down from a distribution wedge and backtest it and aren't able to flip above that neckline, hang on to your hats, because this effectively is one drive of bearish divergence, and this is a second drive of bearish divergence. And if you have two drives of Class A bearish divergence on the daily with some bearish patterns and some breakdowns, then you can actually go for quite a wild ride to the downside. That's why I'm not ruling this out. That's why for the last last week or so, I've been saying I expected more upside. You can check in the last Alpha Commission video. I did say that I did expect us to push back up to 120,000. We absolutely tapped 120,000 in this last move to the upside. And now all it becomes is whether or not we are going to validate this pattern as a distribution wedge or as a falling wedge. And a falling wedge here is actually going to be quite bullish because it's basically related to a bull flag. And so what we're going to be looking for is, if we break this structure, do we come up then and make a higher low above that 115, 116 area, basically back in our range? If we do that, this is going to be what's called a Wyckoff pattern. We're going to have one distribution, two distribution, some type of shakeout, right? What's called jumping the creek. If you start to have a little bull flaggy look right here, and then you start forming another bull flaggy look, typically speaking, we can expect a strong impulse to the upside. I'm going to be all over this, okay? Like jam on toast, all right? However, if we break down and we get locked under 115 especially, right? And if we aren't able to break back into that 116 territory, I'm going to be sending out red flags, all right? Red flags, guys. Let's go ahead and take a look under the hood here on the daily and see if I can add any substance to that. And here you can see a second drive of bearish divergence is forming. Again, guys, I told you, like when people, when the usual talking heads in the market, right? Like I've been saying this for the last week and a half, when the usual talking heads start to get super bullish, right? And start telling you, go all in, right? That's usually when you can start expecting a pullback. And you guys know, right? You guys know that here on, Bitcoin, our entries were down here. This is where I got you guys into the entries, all right? Like down in the 80Ks here. And then on Ethereum, right, we got our entry down here, all right? So the guy's telling you, to grab your entries up here. I just don't know what to say to them. Okay, but it's always the usual same guys, just the talking heads out there in La Land and crypto saying get an entry. No, guys, did you see this impulse on Bitcoin, right? Did you see this impulse on Bitcoin, right? Do you see this impulse on Ethereum? Absolutely, this is a bullish impulse. I do not want to fade the trend, but anyone acting right now is the optimal time to be getting in, I just want to have clarity, right? That you need to do risk management even stronger than before in these type of moments. It doesn't mean that a pullback isn't necessarily for buying. It can absolutely be for buying. Just you're gonna have to watch out. And in the last episode of Alpha Commission, I did go over Ethereum specifically because my run, this is the play that I set up for us, okay? And we absolutely capped it out, at 120 above and beyond expectations. And I was suggesting that we were going to lose our bull zone, what previously was around 3,700 on that last episode. And we absolutely lost it. Now, what we're doing now is we're coming into one of these little just baby bullish order blocks. And so if we can find a little bit of a bounce here, awesome, right? Awesome. Maybe we continue to go. Maybe this trend isn't broken. Maybe everything's just a gravy and I'm putting out warnings for no reason. But, here on the 4 hour, you can see we're starting to have that kind of squeezy look on the 4 hour. And you guys know that those squeezes on the 4 hour can lead into something on the daily. Now here on the daily, you can see this is just a retest of the 9. And as Retta likes to point out, sometimes we just come back and retest the 9 or the 10 EMA. No harm, no foul. Like I said, go back to the 4 hour. This is a bullish order block area. There's a good chance that we find some type of a bounce in this area. This is a bouncy little zone, okay? But just to be aware that if we start losing this area on Ethereum, look, just this little baby pullback, okay, gave us negative 14%, negative 10%. I saw some stuff with negative 30% on it just from this little tiny baby pullback on Ethereum. So, whenever I warn you guys, right, that you should, be moving up those stop losses and skimming a little bit off the top, when you hit these key resistances, as we were doing in the last episode here, You may want to take that, right? You may want to take that advice. It's totally up to you. I'm not your financial advisor, but yeah, that's something to be considered in these type of powerful moves. These big impulses, they sometimes want to come back hard, and yeah, Bitcoin is stacking up bearish divergences now. What's the bull play? Okay, the bull play is that just like ETH was at a little bullish order block there, technically Bitcoin does have this falling wedge pattern that is possible to hold, actually right here on this neckline. So here we can see that we are having, this is not a Bukowski falling wedge, okay? Sometimes you guys may hear me talking about Bukowski falling wedge. This is not a Bukowski falling wedge. This is a pennant. This is an indecision wedge that is kind of giving a false illusion of a falling wedge. But again, guys, like they're related. They're all kind of related. And so while this could very easily lose this low of 117 and then just kind of flash crash down here into that like 113 area, very possible, right? We could also just hold this area. And if we do hold this area, we start grinding our way back above this 118 and a half, right? If we start taking out this 120, effectively, this is going to start to look accumulative. And if we break this neckline above this 120, 121, then again, we could see a pop up to this 123. Effectively, we do have a simple range duplication here that takes us back to 123. And then, do we just take out this liquidity and then make yet another drive of bearish divergence and then pull back deeper? Or do we continue to impulse with a blue sky breakout, because that's going to be a new high on Bitcoin should we take out this little wick high right here, right? So we could have a blue sky breakout, or we could have a bearish divergence that brings us back. We'll have to check on that at the moment. But for now, right, we're just really at this neutral point where I'm just warning you that the confluences for the downside are stacking up, that Ethereum is at pretty strong resistance, that we haven't checked back, right, to those weekly nines on the week here, which you can see is coming in like literally right at that bearish harmonic target that I was pointing out, 110, right? So, if we did have a weekly pullback, again, it would just be testing, it would just be back testing the breakout. So really, on the macro, it's like no harm, no foul. Like this is actually a beautiful back test if we come all the way down to 110. But you gotta, hold on to your hats. You're gonna have to understand that if you're entering in any positions right now, there is a scenario where we could flash crash on those smaller time scales and just completely, wash out your positions. So you're going to have your wits about you. All right. Now we are closing on the 3-day here, and this closure on the 3-day in about 2 hours is actually going to close bullishly. So I don't want to freak you guys out. I don't personally believe that just one drive of bearish divergence is what crashes a chart. Usually you have to have multiple drives of bearish divergence, a minimum of 2, fixed, not just pending, right? But fixed. And so right now we just have another one that's pending on the daily. And, sometimes it takes like 3. So we could actually rapidly impulse to the upside and still be stacking up those bearish divergences, because by definition, a bearish divergence is when you get higher, class A bearish divergence is when you get higher in the price. You have to get higher in the price first to stack up a bearish divergence, right? It's just the RSI is going down. And so the RSI is telling you that the writing's on the wall, that move may have a limitation coming on it. And yeah, so on the short term, like absolutely that played out. But, for the long term to break or lose any of this, like this is huge bullish divergence. I mean, this is huge bullish momentum, guys. Okay, it's not going to be just like one little drive of bearish divergence that's going to take us down. It's going to take a lot more than that. And so I do expect us, in my current bias, to have that move to the upside. I was talking about 120 in the last episode. I do think that, again, if we flip that 120, then the 123, maybe even that 126, maybe to the 130, right? Like that's on the table. And then if we zoom out, right? If we zoom out on the weekly, again, we do have this giant like bull flag appearance right here. Okay, and that bull flag may just want to complete this move all the way up to this 140 area, right? So again, I'm not being bearish. I'm just trying to prepare you guys for what's possible. I think I'm going to end this episode there. This is my first time really to do a Alpha Commission stream for YouTube live in the AR Collective Discord. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thanks for joining. That's your Alpha for the day. Stay safe and happy trading.